everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Andrew Hadley, and I'm the manager of St Vincent Cocoa Company. And I would just like to give you an update of St Vincent Cocoa Company and what's been happening. I've published or released a press bulletin earlier, and I'm just quickly going to read over that so it's all clear. Company update. St Vincent Cocoa Company is now actively buying cocoa beans from cocoa farmers following the company's restructuring in August and September. During this process, myself, Andrew Hadley, General Manager of St Vincent Cocoa Company, have been able to put together a management buyout of the company with the assistance of local investors. The company now is well financed and totally committed to build on the foundation laid over the last 3 years to build a sustainable and successful cocoa industry in St Vincent. To this end, St Vincent Cocoa Company is delighted to continue working with Ecom to establish the cocoa supply chain from Kingstown to ready buyers in Europe and America. The St Vincent Cocoa Company offices are also in the process of being moved from French's to the new offices at the cruise ship terminal, which is more accessible to visitors. During the restructuring process, the nursery and cocoa gene bank at Orange Hill is reverted to government control under the Ministry of Agriculture. The nursery at Dixon remains under the management of St Vincent Cocoa Company, and the company is working closely with the ministry to distribute its plants at no cost to farmers before the end of the wet season. St Vincent Cocoa Company staff are now picking up wet beans from farmers and fermenting them at Dixon. I've said before that it's critical that the cocoa beans are fermented in one place so the process can be closely managed. Customers want a consistent quality, and that cannot be achieved by each farmer has their own way of because each farmer have their own way of fermenting beans. The peak buying period is going to start when the dry season commences in December, January. We are using the time until then to work out pickup and logistic processes. Farmers are being paid cash or by check the day after the beans are picked up from them. Initial payment is 80% of the expected final price, and the remaining 20% 2 weeks later. The reason for this, we don't know the yield and the quality of the cocoa, so you pay the farmer 80%, and then 2 weeks later, once you know the yield and the quality, you pay in the remaining 20%. So the farmer basically is getting paid straight away, very, very quickly. So basically, St Vincent Cocoa Company is keen to engage farmers. So we're looking for anybody who needs planting material, anybody who's wishing to sell their cocoa, and anybody who has lands to rent that St Vincent Cocoa Company could plant cocoa on. Those three things. If anybody wants general advice on cocoa or any of these things, please contact me. My number is 533-1500. That just gives you a brief outline statement of what's happened so far, what the position St Vincent Cocoa Company is in. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Yeah.
How many farmers are with the cocoa company at the present time?
Well, we have generally around 100 farmers in cocoa production here in St Vincent. At the moment, there's about 250 acres over the last 2 years or so, plus old fields that are over 50, 60 years old, 250 acres here in St Vincent. So we have some cocoa here in St Vincent. If you compare that to, let's say, Grenada, to the south of us, you know, they have about 1,200 acres of cocoa. So we've made a start of it, 250 acres of cocoa. So we have a long way to go from being a country that has a small industry, a cottage industry, to a country that can produce cocoa in a large scale for the outside world, so we can really compete with other people. You must remember that St. Vincent or the Caribbean has a special advantage with cocoa. We have fine flavor cocoa. So we have we will get a premium price, and especially our quality profiles and flavors are extremely, extremely good. Yeah.
What is the difference between this new cocoa company and the previous?
Well, first of all, the previous cocoa company was owned initially, if you remember, by Amajaro. And then Amajaro was bought by a company, a trading company called Econ. So you had this big international trading companies owning a small company like St. Vincent Cocoa. And you had directors and people making decisions on St. Vincent Cocoa Company that have never actually been to St. Vincent. And some of them hadn't even been to the Caribbean. When the difference now is that we have local, these are all international people, you know. We have local and some foreign investment. We have 3 main shareholders of the company, and they're directly involved in the company, been here, seen it. I'm one of them myself, actually working in it, and so we have hands-on feeling. But I suppose the main difference is that the aims or the expectations of Amajaro was to planting at least 1,200 acres of cocoa a year here in St. Vincent, 1,200. Earlier I was saying to you that over the last year, plants have been for free, and they've been handed out by the government for free, and only 40 acres have been planted by farmers. So you can see that the expectations to plant 1,200 acres was unrealistic in the beginning, because it's going to go much slower than that, and we have to take it one step at a time. Also, the old St. Vincent Cocoa Company had a MOU behind it, and one of the main problems or the main points of the MOU that was disliked by some Vincentians was the exclusivity of 50 years. Remember, where nobody in St. Vincent could export. They could use it locally for making chocolate or do anything locally here, but they couldn't export it to another buyer. The new St. Vincent Company does not have that MOU. We are a local company with the same rights as everybody else in agriculture. So if any other companies here in St. Vincent want to do the same as us, they're quite free to do it. So it's free competition, it's local investors, and it's got a realistic targets now. And I think that after the initial investment of Amajaro and so on, and they were here for 2.5, 3 years, spending money, educating, training farmers, also getting up to scratch of producing good plant material for the farmers. All this is not in vain. You know, this information is being carried on by St. Vincent Cocoa Company, and so we can try and make progress here in St. Vincent with cocoa.
What is your target?
Sorry?
What is your target?
Our target is to try and grow at least 150 acres of cocoa every year. And it might be hard for 150 acres worth of cocoa to be planted in 1 year by individual small farmers. But what we are trying to do also is we're trying to lease land. So we're trying to lease land that is just abandoned land from the government, for example. They have loads of abandoned land. So we're trying to lease land and plant cocoa ourselves, so that will give us an extra impetus. And also in the private sector too, we're trying to lease land from people. So A typical example is somebody who has 35 acres. He has a job in Kingstown. He's let a man look after his land, and he's only looking after 2 or 3 acres growing plantain, and the rest of the land is just there in bush. And we're saying to him, we could lease his land, look after it, plant cocoa, and then hand it back to him at an agreed time, where you'd have a fully productive cocoa plantation, instead of leaving your land there to just sit there and rot and get people going up there and taking what they want, etc. We would use it productively and hand it back to the farmer. Also, obviously, paying the farmer a lease for the land.
You mentioned 3 main stakeholders. Can you tell us who these stakeholders are?
Well, I am one of them. My name is Andrew Hadley. You have Harry Marriott. Harry Marriott. He is a British citizen, but a dual passport, British Vincentian. I'm Vincentian, as you know. And Ruth Maloney. Ruth Maloney, who has been working in St Vincent off and on for the last 2.5 years. She was my boss from Ecom and Amajaro. She's an Australian lady who has worked in the cocoa industry for at least 12 years. She has a lot of experience. So I'm really, really happy to have Ruth on board. A lot of farmers know her and respect her. So really happy to have Ruth on board as well. So there's 3 of us all together.
Are any of the shareholders previous shareholders in the previous company?
No, none. So we, St Vincent Cocoa Company, myself and the other 2 shareholders, bought St Vincent Cocoa Company, bought the company from Ecom. So that comes with everything. So in other words, you don't have to change a bank account. All we have to do is change the board of directors. So in effect, we bought the company.
And who is Ecom? Can you tell us?
Ecom Trading is a commodity trading company, a very, very large commodity trading company in the world, that previously to this bought Amajaro, which was another trading company. Okay? So a trading company, they deal in commodities. So Ecom, for example, will have contacts all over the world, buying sugar, buying coffee, cocoa, all these commodities. And so what they would do is they would buy their commodities and then they would sell it again in Europe and America. So they're commodity traders. Yeah.
Good morning.
Hi.
You mentioned the memorandum of understanding that was signed between the government and
Amajaro initially, yes.
One of those stipulations was that when they were to pull out before the stipulated time, that they would be assets with the government. Who do those assets now go to if you bought the company?
You'd have to correct me, but I don't see in the memorandum of understanding that once the
It's been said by the minister and also the Prime Minister of Agriculture and the Prime Minister that the assets including the gene bank will remain.
as I said, all the gene bank, all the nursery at Orange Hill that were set up by St Vincent Cocoa Company previously has been left to the government.
What about the other assets, the vehicles?
No, the vehicles belong to the company itself. The vehicles belong to the company itself, and we bought the company from Ecom. Okay, now there is some confusion of that, I must admit, where some people are saying, well, the assets belong to the government. I think that once this happened, what happened really is Ecom came in, said we want to go and see the Prime Minister, the powers that be, because we're closing the company. So I said, fine, let's go and see the Prime Minister. We told the Prime Minister and everybody, and the Minister Caesar, etc., all the people, and we told them, and it was a massive shock to them, right? At that point, the government intentions were not to throw away the cocoa industry, was to try and run it themselves, yeah? To try and run it, maybe try and find a new investment, I suppose. They didn't tell me this, but I suppose they were going to do this, and they set up a program in which they could try and do that. Within about a month, I went out myself, and I tried to find investors, private investors. I tried locally first because I wanted local people And so we half succeeded in that. We did get some local investors, as I've said, but we also got some foreign investors. So then we went back to the government and I said, we have now found some investors who can continue this forward. And there was some, discussion about assets, for example, making sure that the gene bank, that Orange Hill was passed over to the government, that all planting material that was left with by Ecom, which was 160,000 plants, is in government hands. Now we are, as St Vincent Cocoa Company, are helping the government graft these plants, produce these plants, and give them out to the farmer for free. But in actual fact, if you're talking of assets, the gene bank, Orange Hill, and all of the planting material, which is the major assets, were left to the government. Okay? But St Vincent Cocoa Company was bought by some private investors, including myself, which is helping the government and ourselves to try and promote, re-establish cocoa here in St Vincent, distribute all the planting material free to farmers. The government has also got this big flatbed truck that they're distributing plants to farmers for free, not just cocoa plants, but banana plants. And that is actually happening on the ground. A lot of the seedlings that were left, cocoa seedlings, weren't grafted. So at the moment we're grafting the seedlings, St Vincent Cocoa Company. We're doing about 9,000 grafts a month. So once you graft a seedling, you germinate the seed. It grows for 3 months, the seedling itself. Then after that you graft it. So you take a piece of graft wood from a good specimen tree and you put it and you graft it onto the seedling. And then when that takes another 3 months before the graft is ready. So the whole process is 6 months. And then the grafted plant is then distributed to the farmer. Right? So the process is quite long, you know, and it's also expensive. Also quite expensive. Because you can imagine if this year we do 100,000 plants, you know, each one of those has to be grafted. Graft wood has to be picked, you know, insecticides, fertilizers, so it's quite an expensive process.
Is there any affiliation to the cocoa cooperative that was established?
There's no affiliation to any cooperative, but I've said to everyone here in St Vincent, including the cooperatives who I've talked to personally, that this is a Vincentian project. And what I mean by that is that we ourselves, St Vincent Cocoa Company, are putting money into grafting plants, producing plants for the farmers. Because I've got some financial backing, and that's why I'm able to do that. As simple as that. The cooperatives and so on probably haven't got that finance behind them. And so they're struggling to really get the members on board. They haven't got control of the plants, they're not buying cocoa and so on. But what I've said to them is, well, why don't you come to Dixon? We will train you guys in how to graft, how to produce planting material properly. In other words, pass in all the information. You know, and that invitation is open to anybody, especially the cooperatives. You know, we are quite willing and able to share all information with everybody, because it's the whole point of it is that we got to try as a country to grow as much cocoa as possible. So it shouldn't be a them and us thing. It's all of us together trying to persuade farmers to grow cocoa. You know?
Well, you stuck around. That means you have some confidence in the cocoa industry in St. Vincent and Grenada.
Look,
do you see us making that 1,200 acres somewhere along the line? You say maybe
yeah, I think there's problems. I mean, first of all, I am confident, otherwise I wouldn't go to it. And also, I'm deeply passionate about it, okay? It means a lot to me personally. I'm a proud Vincentian, and I want to see it work at the end of the day. Because I think that in the long run, cocoa and sort of longer term fruit trees and tree crops is going to play a large part in the future of St. Vincent agriculture in the future. Without a doubt, I think. And if we can harness this now, this opportunity now, I think down the road we will really benefit strongly. For the reasons I say that is manifold, but I'll just give you a few. First of all, the cocoa price is going to increase. There's no doubt about it. Demand for cocoa is outstripping supply. Right? African producing countries are having massive problems at the moment because of civil wars, diseases, and you know, I don't want to go on about it. So the demand for cocoa is growing all the time. People not just like the taste of cocoa, it's been proven that cocoa is a very good thing for you, you know. So demand is outstripping. Also, what's happening is that here in St. Vincent now is that we have small farmers, right? The estates were split up. Farmers were given between 3 and 5 acres all over the country. Let's take Orange Hill, for example. It's 3,000 acres of Orange Hill. It was all split up. Now, if you go up to Orange Hill, only 20% of that land is actually being used or cultivated. Most of it has been abandoned. Why is that? Farmers are getting old. Agriculture is not sexy enough. But one of the problems is that the land is not accessible. So you have land that was leased by people 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They haven't paid their leases. They've abandoned it. Some of them have given it to other people, etc., etc. And you have lots of land up there that can't be used. And it's not just at Orange Hill. It's all over St. Vincent. So I urge Vincentians to be aware of this and to put pressure on the powers that may be to try and sort out this land problem that we have here in St. Vincent, especially for agriculture. It's very, very important, but it's highly politically sensitive because you're taking away land from people and you're giving land away and so on. It's very, very hard for politicians to be dealing with it, but I urge them to do that. I see this project working by farmers seeing, first of all, that they can make money in cocoa. First of all, it has to be profitable and sustainable for them. Once people can make money, farmers will go into cocoa. And it's been proven all over the world that there is money in cocoa. Secondly, we are our best trying to lease government land or in private sector land to try and boost those numbers, like we said, so we can get up to the 1,000-acre mark, 1,200-acre mark.
So if there's such a high demand for cocoa, why did the first company?
The first company lease left because, quite simply, their targets were 1,200 acres a year. Right? They're a massive company. They were looking at large volumes, and over the last 2.5 years, right? The first year we did 156 acres of demonstration plots where St. Vincent Cocoa Company paid for it, paid for the planting, gave farmers fertilizer, etc. But when it was left to farmers to do it themselves, even though planting material is for free and so on, we're only getting 30 or 40 acres a year. So the big company said, boy, we're never going to meet our targets. I'm pulling out because financially I'm not interested in it. Just simply as that, simple as that. Purely business decision. You know? That's why they left.
I know, I think as you would have pointed out that the cocoa industry has potential, I agree with you. I think one of the major problems is that there's an issue where the cocoa will take longer
to grow.
Yeah. How would you advise farmers who might want something going for them in between to work out that production?
Well, first of all, cocoa, right, doesn't start bearing for at least 2 to 3 years. And in the second year and the third year, you're going to get a few pods a tree, even though it's bearing a very little amount. When you plant your cocoa, the hardest part of cocoa production is the first 2 or 3 years, because the cocoa trees are very, very small. You're putting 440 trees on 1 acre. It's giving you nothing. So a farmer who is not into cropping with something, all he's going to be doing is spending money, is spending money to circle weed his cocoa and keep bush away from it, vines, etc. Now, if you're into cropping with cocoa for the first 2 or 3 years, you plant your cocoa, you intercrop with dasheen, banana, anything that you want basically, and you literally more or less ignore your cocoa there and you concentrate on your other crops that are going to give you $1. After 2 or 3 years, when the cocoa trees start to get large and the canopy starts to close, you then stop intercropping your bananas and so on, and you're left with a cocoa field that is giving you a regular income. So it's very important that farmers, especially small farmers, plant cocoa, yes, but intercrop it with other things for the first 2 years. All the demonstration farmers that we had, the people that intercropped their cocoa looking lovely. The ones that didn't intercrop, they just left it there like that, finding it very difficult to control the weeds and the bush and so on, and they're getting nothing from it. That's the main principle. You have to intercrop.
What part will the SVG Cocoa Company play in terms of making lands accessible for cocoa production?
Well, we are trying to, first of all, if anybody in the private sector who has lands that's basically out there in bush and so on, and it belongs to the family or it belongs to them, and they want to make good use of it, St. Vincent Cocoa Company could lease that land, plant cocoa on it, look after the cocoa, reap the cocoa, and hand it back to the farmer at a pre-arranged time after a certain number of years. Also, I'm trying my best to talk to the government to try and also get some land in where we can rent it from the government, which basically belongs to the people of St. Vincent. Again, plant cocoa on it for a number of years, and then we can hand it back so we could get some bulk here in St. Vincent, It's simple. I'll just tell you this. If you have 440 trees on an acre of land, cocoa, you must remember this, right? 440 trees. If each of those trees bear 20 pods a year, okay, 20 pods a year, each of those trees, you're going to make, as a farmer, grossing $4,000 per year, per acre. If those same trees are delivering 100 pods a year, you could make $20,000 per year per acre in cocoa. So a man with 10 acres, and this is proven in the world, a man with 10 acres of cocoa can gross over $200,000 a year if he's a very good farmer and he really does his stuff. Those who don't look after their cocoa and so on probably get about 20 pods, which is $4,000 a year. So there is money in cocoa.
Approximately how long are you talking about when you say leasing? How long do you lease it?
Well, this would have to be individually with each individual person, that would have to be worked out. But for us to try and get it going, I think the minimum would be 15 years probably, the minimum. Because cocoa doesn't come into, even though cocoa starts bearing in the second and third year, it doesn't come into full production, so you're getting those 100 pods per tree per year till the 5th, 6th year.
Would the company be practicing sustainable farming in the meantime? Because you mentioned after the first 2 years that they could intercrop, and then after 2 years it would just be cocoa.
It would just be cocoa. It wouldn't just be cocoa there. This is the way I've planted. In the first 2 years, I intercrop with banana. I've done dasheen. I've done sweet potato. I've done papaya in my 2 acres of cocoa. I planted my cocoa about 1.5 years ago, so I still have that intercropping going. What I've done also is I've planted hardwood trees, mahogany, and some other hardwood trees in between the cocoa. So to every acre, I've got about 60 hardwood trees. I've got 440 cocoa trees, and I'm intercropping. So the first 2-3 years, I'm getting money for my dasheen, right? For my banana. After the 3rd to the 25th year, I'm getting money from cocoa. And then on the 25th year, let's say the cocoa after about 25 years becomes less productive, you could chop down your hardwood trees and you could sell your hardwood and start again. So you've got a short term, you've got a medium to long term, which is the cocoa, and then you've got your long term, which is your hardwood trees. That model is being practiced all over Latin America. It's an agroforestero model, where you're growing, you're being productive within a forest, within the forest. So the forest is not there just to, first of all, the forest pulls the land together, stops slippage, stops the rivers coming down like they did at Christmas. But secondly, with that sort of system, you could be making money too. You're making money from your cocoa. You're sustaining the land and you're making money in a very environmentally sound way. Cocoa doesn't need that much insecticides or don't need any nematicides, no plastic bags, nothing like that. It's a very eco-friendly crop. Sorry.
You mentioned farmers involved in the cocoa industry are aging. What can the SVG Cocoa Company do to attract new, younger farmers
Well,
in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I say farmers are aging, not just in cocoa, but all over. Banana farmers, all farmers are aging, and we're finding it hard. And a lot of, if you talk to Van Loo, you talk to other people here in St. Vincent, got to the minister, they'll tell you that the youth don't want to go into agriculture anymore. It's not sexy enough for them. They want to go out and, be computer programmers and so on, right? So what we have, first of all, I think the only way as a young man that I will go into agriculture compared to something else is if it makes money for me.
What you said it does.
It does make, yeah, it is a viable fact. So, but people have this thing that agriculture doesn't make money because a lot of the time we don't look at it as a business, So that, we have to look at agriculture, and the youth have to look at agriculture as a business, and it can be very profitable, right? And not just the youth, everybody has to look at agriculture as a business. So from the consumer, a lot of consumers, we just take things for granted. We'll just say, man, why y'all charging me so much for those bananas? It should be, should appreciate the work, and that it's something that we as a consumer want, and so we have to pay for it. Also, agricultural lending. Where can we, the government has just introduced 2%, this from the Farmer Support Company, $6 million. It's very, very hard from a farmer. Unless he puts money down or he puts his own land down, the bank will not lend money, for agriculture. All of this is, we're not treating agriculture as a business. Why is it if you're building a house, you can go and get insurance for your house, you can go and get insurance for your car? But if you have 5 acres of a crop, you can't get insurance, proper insurance for your all these things. Agriculture has to be treated as a business. We've been relying too long here in St. Vincent, as far as I'm concerned, this is my opinion, in agriculture, on subsidies. In other words, being propped up by government, basically. Government is giving us things, or we're getting free this or free that from the European Union. And so once that money runs out, now business flat again. And so we need a new injection. businesses don't work like that. Business have to operate on themselves and make money from day to day, year to year to survive. It has to be sustainable. Otherwise, we won't be interested in it. You know. So, that is such a for me is such a very important point where. And it's not just farmers, the whole country have to embrace agriculture as a business and look at the opportunities going forward and stop relying on government to do everything for us.